Okay, the third and final Rugby League Ashes test has just finished up at Headingley in Leeds. Australia have won 30 points to 8. The scoreline makes them look a bit more comfortable than the actual match would suggest, but this is back-to-back test matches where England have failed to score in the second half, and in all three test matches, uh, England failed to score in the first half of the first test, and as I say, back-to-back tests 2 and 3 in the second half, and that is a concern. Game itself, England were sloppy in the first half. They allowed two really easy tries, really, to Australia. They really did, and off the back of really sloppy errors. They do get back into the game with the George Williams try and the Harry Smith penalty, and it means the game is in the balance going into the second half. And the way England played that first 15, 20 minutes of the second half, yes, they did unsettle Australia. Australia made some very uncharacteristic errors. But that first half, Josh Adokar try for just 5 minutes set the tone, I think, of it summed up the series as well. Couple of sets each, you're feeling each other out, and then sloppy, England sloppy, coming out of their own end, lose the ball, results in a Australia scrum, and Australia basically score off first phase. And that has summed up England in this series. And it also sums up the series as a whole, where crucial errors have cost England and have made Australia's job a lot easier. And that's Josh Adokar. You don't want to give him space. He's exceptionally quick. He's got a scary turn of pace, a little bit of a sidestep, but you don't want to give Adokar space. He's a finisher. Now, that's after 5 minutes, and that's got to be concerning that early in the game, England just have no intensity and are making sloppy errors. Now, Australia can't fully take advantage of that, but they are the better side at this point in the game. Now, the 20 minutes, Callum Watkins no try. Callum Watkins, I don't think, was close to getting that ball down. But Mark Nwanga he can have these errors in his game. Under the high ball, brilliant. Under a low grubber kick or a little through kick, he doesn't like turning. And he does make a bit of a hash of clearing that up. But all it results in is a goal line dropout. The referee's looking, Ron Atkins is looking for a knock on. He sends it up to the TMO. The TMO confirms that there isn't a knock on, but it's still a dropout. And that was a little flash from England that, hey, we can still do something. But the fact that England have only scored 2 tries in this series is also deeply concerning. Now, a few minutes after that, Australia have gone up the other end. They've built some momentum. And eventually, again, through England making sloppy errors coming out their own ends and silly penalty, Hudson Young gets his try on 26 minutes. And Hudson Young he's an agitator. As a Canberra Raiders fan, I love how Hudson Young plays at times. You want him on your side rather than against your team. But as an England fan, you don't want Hudson Young to be allowed to play his high energy game. He's an energy player, and he scores his try after 26 minutes, makes it 12-0. Cleary's not missed a single kick in this series, which was criticised for, obviously, in State of Origin, some of his goal kicking. Cleary's actually, in my opinion, Nathan Cleary's had a bit of a quiet series at times. Very understated. Other players have really shone in this series. Cleary's been under the radar a little bit in this series, but his goal kicking has been fantastic. And that puts Australia at 12-0. And Australia have now been allowed to build a little comfortable lead and have settled into the game. England can't really get a foothold. And then Jez Litton makes his break. And this is something England haven't done enough of, are these line breaks. And it's a brilliant line break. It's an individual line break. It's the little kick through, and it's George Williams scoring the try, and that's on 33 minutes, and that's come from nothing. That has come from an individual play by Jez Litton to get England up the field. And that's something that England have been lacking, is around the play of the ball. They've been slower, they've been clunky when they're building phases. And Jez Litton just injects some pace, sees a gap, targets, he sees 2 forwards being lazy at marker and in the gap. And that gets England back in the game off the back of not being very good. They're back in the game. Now, the Lindsay Collins no try. Lindsay Collins for a front row forward is very, very good in the air. That is, a very, very good kick. It's poorly dealt with at the back. It is poorly dealt with at the back. But obviously at this point, AJ Brimson has gone off, and I think that is a big loss losing AJ Brimson. And so, you know, England look a little bit vulnerable in that fullback area with AJ Brimson off the field. However, the scramble defence, I mean, Lindsay Collins still gets the ball down on the dead ball line. I mean, we're talking, 6-8 inches? Lindsay Collins puts that ball down 6-8 inches before the dead ball line. It's a brilliant try. It's a brilliant bit of group defence by the back three. They get around Lindsay Collins, and again, it goes to TMO. It is a no try. England do finish the half on top. Australia start making a few sloppy discipline errors, and Harry Smith slots the penalty to make it 12-8. Now, the game is suddenly in the balance because of George Williams' try and the Harry Smith penalty. But apart from those little flashes, Australia were pretty comfortable. But the start of the second half, the Josh Adokar no try from Cameron Munster's kick. Now, the referee, Grant Atkins, thinks he's in front of the kicker. Unfortunately, there's not enough good TV angles from the camera positions to suggest that Adokar was onside or offside. Now, in that case, and there'll be Australia fans blowing up, saying he's onside, it was a great kick chase. Josh Adokar is very, very good at the kick chase. Has he mistimed the run? I think there's the potential that if Grant Atkins thinks he's in front of the kicker, you have to go with the referee. But the touch judge doesn't give a decision, and the touch judge should be in line. So, I mean, that's a warning shot by Australia that, don't get too comfortable, England. We can still do this. And Cameron Munster's had a fantastic game at 6. Really done a lot of the playmaking. Just Nathan Cleary just doing his job, but Cameron Munster's done a lot of playmaking, taking a bit of pressure from Nathan Cleary, and that is a very, very good kick. That kick was made at the Melbourne Storm many years ago because Adokar and Munster are obviously former teammates. It's a well-weighted kick. Just Adokar slightly offside, question mark. But as a result of that no try, England start building some momentum for the next 10-15 minutes, and Australia get a bit sloppy, silly penalties, they can't get out of their 10 or 20 metre zone. England fronts up, they show some energy, some big hits. There are some flash points, and we can debate those flash points. But ultimately, I think the turning point where England have got all this territory and pressure and possession, and they're unsettling Australia. Now, Australia are trying their best to slow the play down, break the play up, make it scrappy. That ironically does suit England a little bit because Australia have no flow, but England are on top at this point and they want to build momentum, and I think Australia are better at the dark arts, which is getting under the England players' skin, more flash ups. But then I think Joe Burgess here is actually quite lucky on about 54-55 minutes. I think he's got away with kneeing Shibasaki in the head. I really do. I think he's a lucky boy not to be sin-binned or sent off. I know it's not the nastiest knee to their head, and people go, the game's getting soft. But I think he's got very, very lucky with a very cheeky one there. This is at a point in the game where it is getting fractures. There are, some scuffles. And look, I honestly think they should bring back the biff a little bit. I think, hang on a second. The fans are loving the energy. They're loving the scuffles and all. The fans are actually loving it. Headingley's energy was the best atmosphere out of the 3 games. I think the fans like these flashpoints. 15, 20 years ago, that's ended in 30-plus man brawls because the bench might get involved. The subs that would have ended in a full-on 26, 30-plus man punch-up. And fans, ironically, when you look at YouTube and you look at all the clips on social media, look at the view counts, look at the comment section. I understand why they've taken fighting out the game and they want to, player safety and all that. But back in the day, Joe Burgess, he does a little knee like that, that's going to incite a brawl. And I think he's got lucky. I think he's got lucky, but that's the turning point. Because England at this point have got unsettled Australia. They're not running away with it. England are clinging on there. They've got some good energy. And then that, for me, is the turning point. Because then Harry Grant gets his try on 61 minutes. Very similar to Litton's break. He just sees two lazy markers and goes through a gap straight under the post. And then Reece Walsh, who's had a quiet game and a half, I would have thought, comes to life. Just comes to life right at the end of the game. He's been very, very quiet. In the second test, he was quiet, not at his best. In this test, for 68 minutes, he's been quiet. He's been kept quiet. And then he pops up with two tries. And look, you could argue he gets lucky with one where it's an attempted intercept and then he pings a pass and Newman's trying to intercept it, knocks it on, he picks the ball back up and runs over and scores. But he scores two tries right at the end of the game. And look, Reece Walsh, on his day, like the first test, he was brilliant. First test match at Wembley, brilliant. There's no denying that. It was fantastic 2 weeks ago. The back end of the season in the NRL, he was brilliant. Big part of why the Brisbane Broncos go on, not only to make the grand final, but win the grand final. But at times he can go missing. He can be quiet, he can be off his game, but then suddenly he can do things like, in the last couple of minutes where he scores two tries. Now that does give Australia a comfortable scoreline, but something else was very, very noticeable. In that 20 minutes at the beginning of the second half, England put a lot of energy in there, a lot of commitment, some big hits, but the game management was poor. Sometimes they're forcing the pass, and at the end, the fitness was Australia had the fitness, and when you're tired and fatigued, mistakes happen. Australia looked quicker overall, in the ruck area, at the play the ball. In distribution, the combinations looked more settled. England looked very, very clunky. Australia were flatter, so when the player's coming onto the ball, he's coming onto the ball at the right pace, at the right timing, which then gives the defence less time to organise, whereas England are sometimes too deep, which gives the defence more time to organise. They're not flat enough or shallower. They need to be shallower, and that's something very, very obvious. In that last 20 minutes, Australia just... the fitness told, and I think that also contributes to three late tries. But then we saw that in the second test as well, that they got points later on. But it is worrying that in back-to-back tests England can't score in the second half, especially when they've actually had some periods where they have been on top a little bit. But Australia, it was... as soon as the squads were announced, a lot of people were predicting, three hammerings and a whitewash. Now, a whitewash has happened. Now, the second test was a lot closer. The scoreline, I think, flatters Australia a little bit in this test match, but they took advantage when they got down in the England 20 metre, 10 metre zone. They took advantage. England, apart from Jez Litton's line break, didn't really take advantage of being in Australian territory. And the fact that Harry Smith is the top point scorer for England in this series, and he's only played 2 of the 3 tests, and all those points have come from his boot, is also a big problem. The fact England have only scored 2 tries is a big problem. They were kept tryless in the second test. So when I do my review of this Ashes series and where I think Australia and England are at, they're going in polar opposites. And this is not the strongest Australian side. Let's be clear on that. Because of the rise of the Pacific Championships and a lot of eligible players who could play for Australia, who play for Queensland, New South Wales, playing for Samoa, Tonga, for example, PNG. AJ Brimson has played for Queensland, can in theory have played for Australia. This is not the strongest Australian side that has ever, taken the field. And they let's be honest, they've been comfortable in all 3 tests. That says something. But there we go. The Ashes is over. It's a 3-0 whitewash to Australia. And I don't think Sean Wayne should be the coach for the World Cup. But I don't know. It doesn't matter if you get Sam Burgess or someone else in. Bring back Wayne Bennett. The issues are still there. And a lot of the issues also lie with the Super League. And I'm not saying the players that were selected didn't put their every single available effort and energy into it. But I do think the Super League, with all its problems, is also impacting the Test side. And also the fact that England haven't played Australia since 2017 until this series, I think is another big problem. That, look, we've finally got a Test series between the two nations. It's been too long, but that England seem to be going backwards with a broken handbrake, whereas Australia, even though this is not their strongest side they could have named in theory, they've taken those steps. So there we go. But thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the third test in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.